In today's show, Anfernee Simons isn't one of the best 25 players under 25 in the NBA? Are the Blazers nearing a sale? And let's take a spin on the Tankathon. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it. What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trail Blazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Blazers your first listen every day, free and available wherever you get podcasts. Today's show, Anfernee Simons left off two different lists of the best players under 25 in the NBA. Really? Very interesting. As Russell Westbrook once famously said, some reporting on the sale of the Trailblazers seems closer than ever. Let's talk about what that means. And then we'll close the show taking a spin, our first ever spin live. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see, you'll see me do this in real time on the third segment. We'll take a spin on the Tankathon, simulate a Blazers draft for the first of many times this year. So let's talk 25 under 25. The worldwide leader, ESPN.com, released their list. They do this each and every year of the 25 best players under the age of 25 in the league. It was a panel of 3 people, so it's maybe like this is maybe like a sample size thing, but it's smart people: Bobby Marks, Mike Schmitz, and Kevin Pelton, friend of the program. Kevin Pelton, former guest on this podcast and just like a friend of mine. So. You know, I really respect KP. I do not know Bobby and Mike at all, but like these are smart people who know the league. And yet Anfernee Simons does not make the list. I would call that curious. Like I don't know if that's necessarily like an indictment of them or whatever it might be, but like it's a little bit curious that that Simons isn't on the list. When I go through this, quite frankly, I see one name that is like legitimately very egregious. I'm not sure that I see a bunch of other names that are that. Like I think, and you can look at it with me here. Like Jaren Jackson is 25. If you're watching on YouTube, you can watch it with me here. Like Jaren Jackson is at 25. I think Jaren Jackson just like straight up better than Ant. I don't think that's a problem. Tyrese Maxey. Now we're getting to the point where like I think you can make a case that Tyrese Maxey is better than Anfernee Simons, but I don't know that we're getting strong. And then this is the name that I want to highlight right here. Like John Collins is not better than Anfernee Simons, and this is a list, to be clear, that is it's not best players like currently. It's future projections of the best 25 players, and I just project Anfernee Simons to be straight up way better than John Collins. At the top of the list, you know, there's not a lot you can bicker with, right? Luka Doncic is number 1. Jason Tatum is number 2. Ja Morant is 3. Trae Young is 4. You get 6 is Cade Cunningham. 7 is Zion Williamson. I don't know how Bam Adebayo didn't get in there. 5 is LaMelo Ball. I skipped over him on my list. Like I think that top 7 is pretty unassailable. Anfernee Simons is not better than Luka Doncic and Jason Tatum. He's not in that stratosphere. He's not as good as Ja Morant. He's not there, right? He's not close to Trae. Trae is like an elite engine. LaMelo Ball is pretty obviously better than Anfernee Simons is. Same with Cade Cunningham. Like I think you could argue that their production was relatively similar, but Cade looks like he's going to be a super duper star. I would buy some Cade Cunningham stock. I think he's going to be really good in the league. I think what this gets to, and I think this is maybe the part that's like frustrating for some, is like this isn't an indictment of Ant. Like Ant not being included over Tyrese Maxey and John Collins is fine, right? You know who's not on the list? Robert Williams isn't on that list. OG Anunoby isn't on that list. But I think like what I maybe should have like manufactured some fake outrage to be like, here's who Ant is better than him. He's better than John Collins. I think he will be better than John Collins next year, and I think he'll be consistently better there from moving on. John Collins, get him out of here for my money. Anfernee Simons is going to be better than him, but Anfernee Simons being one of the, say, like 27 best under 25-year-olds in the league just speaks as kind of the strength of that 2018 draft class and how special it is. The other name that maybe people might bicker with a little bit is Desmond Bane. Ends up at 17, and you might argue that because of Anfernee Simons' shot creation skills, he belongs ahead of Desmond Bane. I think I can hear some of you complaining about Tyrese Halliburton. I'm not going there, not yet. But I think Ant is relatively comparable with those players, and I think that's really what this speaks to. Is like each of the three people on this ESPN panel, at Pelton, Schmitz, and Marks, all released their lists, like their individual lists and how they got there. None of the three had Ant on there. A couple of them had some differentiations in there and whatever, and like. Bam Adebayo was higher on KP's list than he was on other folks. Bam Adebayo is fantastic. Y'all need to put him higher on the list. Give me Bam Adebayo probably over Zion Williamson today, just because of health and availability. Although Bam did miss a bunch of time this year. What this speaks to is like, I think generally around the league, the perception is maybe a little lower on Simons than it is here. And I think that's what the most eye-opening thing. I mentioned that there were two lists. The Athletic, maybe intentionally, maybe unintentionally, did a similar thing with Mike Vorkunov and James Edwards. And what Vork and James got to was that instead of doing a top 25 list, they built a team, like a 13-person team, an active, like a active roster for any given night of 25 players under 25. Neither of them included Anfernee Simons on their list, but both of them included Anfernee Simons in like the last cuts to make the team. Edwards maybe he listed them in order, was kind of unclear, but had them behind Franz Wagner, the rookie from the Magic. That's wild to me. Good, whatever it might be, but I think there's reason to be like a little bit frustrated maybe with this Ant ranking, but moreover, like I look at this as like it is an interesting way to consider what Anfernee Simons' value is around the league as he heads into free agency, right? Like if you say like, well, he's not as good as Tyrese Maxey or Tyrese Halliburton, or he's no Desmond Bane, like, right? Like if you start knocking off these guys that are all better than Ants at 25, like you kind of, this isn't how necessarily front offices perceive them, but I don't think like this makes it seem more likely that Anfernee Simons is getting like $19.5 million a year and not $23.5 million a year. Kevin Pelton and Bobby Marks don't set the salary, but when I'm thinking about this, I'm like, okay, all of these dudes, if they're under 25, they've either signed max contracts like De'Aaron Fox, Luka Doncic, Trae Young will get there, signing the super max deals. Jaren Jackson signed a max extension, stuff like that. It's like pretty much everyone on this list is aligned to sign for that type of money. Like that's what this means. It's maybe not exactly 1-to-1, but it's darn close. Like if you're on this list, you are signing for near max or max money. Zion Williamson, max money, that type of thing. Like obviously everybody up there, LaMelo will end up signing for max money. Cade Cunningham's a freaking number 1 overall pick, is going to sign for max money. Like Ant not being on this list, it makes me think not like that he was snubbed, is that like this summer the Blazers might get a quote unquote discount because of the larger perception of what Anfernee Simons is like in the league. Is Ant going to come in cheap? No, that's not how this works. But like I said, maybe this is bumping down from below 20 million to under 20 million as an average annual value, because there just are a bunch of young, really good players in the league, and there won't be this like crazy rush for Ant services. There aren't a bunch of teams that can sign him with, there's not a bunch of free agent money out there. And the teams that do have free agent money, like the Spurs and the Pistons and the Pacers, they've got good young guards. Cade Cunningham and Tyrese Halliburton on the damn list. DeJounte Murray, pretty darn good, an all-star this year. So it doesn't seem like those teams are as like threatening necessarily, specifically the ones with cap room. And maybe the perception, if you look at this list, 25 under 25, is that like there isn't this big push to create room to make a run on Ants. Ant's always going to re-sign with the Blazers, but I think this is maybe an interesting judge of his market value. All right, let's come back to the second segment. Let's talk sale of the team. Speaking of market value and money, a little bit of reporting out of Portland about potential future sale of the Blazers, and many of you have kind of reached out asking me about the potential. So let's talk about that. But first, I want to tell you about Bet Online. Yeah, that's our partner that's got more draft odds, more odds, more lines, and more props than anywhere else. Tomorrow night is a massive, massive game for the Blazers. They're not playing, but the Clippers host the Pelicans in the final West playoff game to decide who gets eighth. Pelicans miss the playoffs. Blazers are very likely to get 2 lottery picks. This will change the future of their franchise. A massively important game. And right now on betonline.net, the Clippers are favored by 4 points. Clippers minus 4.5. The money line minus 175 if you want to bet on the Clippers. Over under in that game 215.5. They got odds like that on everything, not just your Clippers Pelicans game, but every sport you can find. So why don't you go take advantage of it right now? That's Bet Online, where the game starts. All right, let's keep it rolling. So we talked Ant on the 25 under 25 list. One of the big things that's going to happen this summer is the Blazers are going to have to commit long-term money to probably several players. Certainly Yusuf Nurkic and Anfernee Simons, and I think there's a very good chance that the Blazers also commit some long-term money to Dame. In fact, he's already under contract for 3 seasons, but I think it's, if you've been listening to this podcast, let me say it again clearly for you. I think it is very, very, very likely that the Blazers sign Damian Lillard to a max extension this summer, offering him 2 years and a little over $100 million. That would keep him under contract for 5 more seasons after this. I think this is just straight up likely scenario. That would be a lot of money committed to folks beyond what the Blazers do with potentially 2 picks, beyond what they do with mid-level exception, beyond what they do with, if they use that traded player exception to bring in another, somebody making close to $20 million a year. Like, they're going to make some big financial decisions this summer because that's the position they're in. And it's also like a $1 billion entity. They make big financial decisions every summer. It's the nature of the beast. But it matters more because it seems inevitable that the Blazers are going to be sold in the near-ish future. Reporting from Jason Quick of The Athletic a couple months ago indicated basically exactly that the Blazers have a deal kind of negotiating a lease with the city for the arena, and some of the sort of negotiations with the lease, like the Blazers are going to renew it. They're not going anywhere. But like some of the negotiations with the lease are tied up in what's going to happen with the sale. How long will that deal be? How long will the agreement with the city be? What does it look like? What are if there's outs, what do the outs look like? What do the renewals look like? All of the big business things you do with your municipality that you live in. It's, Portland's going to be here. The Blazers are going to be here, rather. Portland's also going to be here. That's how geography works. But the Blazers are going to be here. But some of the sort of negotiations with the stadium stuff, with the stadium leasing stuff, is tied into who is going to own the team. And it was always going to be a short-term ownership after Paul Allen passed and Jody Allen became the executor of his estate, and the Paul Allen estate owns it, and Jody Allen is the functioning owner as the estate sorted out. I've said this in the podcast before, but I'll say it again. Right when Paul passed, I asked someone who kind of would know this type of thing, because I assumed that the sale could happen very quickly. I said kind of like, hey, when can we expect this thing to get sold? And they told me it would take at least 5 years for it to be sorted out. Paul passed in fall of 2018. The fall of 2023 would be 5 years. I think it's coming. Not just because someone told me that in 2018, but the reporting suggests that. Both Jason Quick and The Athletic says that there might even be some kind of in the estate that might say that Jody Allen has to go ahead and make the sale. She can't wait around. part of the deal of the estate is that they need to move on from ownership of this. That was reporting from Jason Quick, and some recent reporting from John Canzano, who runs he's gone independent. He no longer works at the Oregonian. He runs a Substack, baldfacedtruth.com or baldfacedtruth.substack, whatever it is, baldfacedtruth. BFT. Shout out to John Canzano, a powerful voice in this market. And Canzano wrote a story about kind of the Blazers' future, detailing some of the lease stuff. But the real reporting is there. He said that a source within Vulcan, which is the entity that Paul Allen's company, and Vulcan Sports is the entity that runs Trailblazers Incorporated, TBI, that runs the Blazers, that runs the portion of the estate that owns the Trailblazers. That Vulcan someone within Vulcan told him that the Blazers would be sold within 6 to 18 months. Also indicated the Blazers aren't going anywhere. No, duh. Like, anyone worried the Blazers are going anywhere just is not paying attention to sort of the nature of how the NBA is going to work. They're going to expand. They're not going to relocate. When you expand, you have to buy in. When you buy in, owners get the money of the buy-in. Billionaires want more money. They're not going to relocate. The relocation of Seattle, of the Supersonics to Oklahoma City, was kind of ugly and stupid. They did a poor job with it. They do not want to have that happen again. They certainly aren't going to have it happen again to these same regional markets. The Blazers aren't going anywhere. Whoever buys a team is not taking them anywhere. They probably won't be able to take them anywhere either by mandate or league rule. Like, it's just not going to happen. But according to Canzano, 6 to 18 months, like 6 months would be October of this year. 18 months, would be next summer, roughly, give or take, right? Like, it would be roughly next off season. I guess it would be the end of next off season. But if it's in there, it could be any time from this coming summer to next coming summer, when to the next summer after that, 2023, when this team gets sold. And I think, like, why I mentioned the financial stuff up top is, like, everything flows from who's in charge. I think that's part of the reason why it's like just a straight up lock that Joe Cronin is going to get to continue to have this job, because more so than maybe the player contracts, which are always like sort of typically short term, and like, while maybe giving Damian Lillard $55 million when he's 36 is like not good basketball sense in a salary cap league, like it's fine for butts in seats, like for selling tickets, like keeping Dame here actually might be more valuable to the franchise, even if it screws up the salary cap. You can only spend so much on player contracts. So like where the actual sort of spending happens and then like the business decisions happen are like things like a lease for a building, or things like putting executives in charge. The Blazers had 2 chief executives leave, like two C-level executives leave. This one left of their own accord on the business side, and then they fired Neil Olshey on the basketball side, and they promoted from within. Like that's not to say that Dwayne Hankins or Joe Cronin isn't capable of doing the job. Like, Cronin has reshaped the whole dang thing, and Hankins has kind of done some things behind the scenes that maybe we don't know as much about. But like, if you were kind of all in on, I'm the owner and will reshape this in my image, like you might hire from the outside, or you might conduct a large outside search. Well, the Blazers have, said, we're going to conduct a search and keep the interim tag on Cronin. The reporting from Jason Quick, friend of the program, says like they haven't even considered reaching out to any of the agents that represent big GMs, or pretty much 85% of the GMs around the league. It's Cronin's job, and that is the type of stuff that just points to this team being sold. You don't hire a GM and sign him to, go get your big money GM and assign him to a long-term contract and then sell the team 2 years later, because the new owner is going to want to reshape things in their own right. You promote from within, and maybe Cronin keeps the job because he does a good job and the new ownership says you're doing a good job, keep it moving. But like, you don't make these sort of big financial executive level decisions if you're going to move on from the team. Everything flows from ownership. Ownership is the biggest advantage in sports. The Blazers used to have that in spades. After Paul Allen passed, things changed. Jody Allen was not obsessed with the NBA like her brother. That's not a fault of hers. It's just a fact. Her faults are other places than like not liking the NBA very much. But ownership is a huge advantage in the league. Like, it's the teams that are good have owners that invest in them and will be passionate about putting out a winning product. And teams that have bad ownership, see the team in Sacramento, for a long period of time and continuing now, like they scuffle. See the Minnesota Timberwolves probably with the pretty whack ownership group over the last 20 years. Like it is what it is. Ownership is really important. The Blazers are likely headed for a sale here in the next couple years, it sounds like, and ownership should hopefully rightfully change the direction of this franchise, because not that the Blazers can't be good with Jody Allen in charge. Like they went to the freaking Western Conference Finals the year Paul passed. Like that's not exactly how it works. It's not 1-to-1. But if things are shifting the other way, and it looks like the Blazers were incredibly messy over the last little bit, ownership helps things be less messy. Ownership helps guide things. The decision-making from the top, a commitment and a passion from the top, puts things on a course. Like that is, even if you aren't a hands-on owner, you hire people who you hire and put people in spots to carry out the vision, to conduct things, et cetera, et cetera. The Blazers are headed for a sale, and everything will flow from that sale. All right, let's come back in the third segment and spin the dang wheel. We're playing some little Tankathon game. We're going to take 3 spins on Tankathon, simulate some drafts, see where the Blazers land in the fake lottery world, and dream about a future where the Blazers are hopefully, if we do it right, at the top of the lottery. But before we do that, let me tell you about Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar that there is. You can go look at all the flavors they got at Built.com. They got a rotating cast of characters, new and limited time flavors all the time. Right now, they got a bunch of puff flavors in various varieties. Like you got your raspberry puff and your strawberry puff. It's kind of like a marshmallow, airy flavor, maybe akin to a Milky Way. If a Milky Way had 17 grams of protein and only 4 grams of sugar, like delicious and tasty and candy bar-esque, but packing a real punch. If you're not into the puff flavors, you can find some old standbys like my personal favorite peanut butter brownie, or whatever you're into. Go to Built.com, check it out, and while you're there, save some money. Use the promo code LOCKED15. You get 15% off your next order. That's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Today's show is also brought to you by RockAuto.com, the family business that's been saving you money and specializing in helping do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. I'm talking real money, 30, 50, even 100% if you go to the chain auto parts store or if you're going to the dealership. If you listened to my story last week, I went to a chain auto parts store and they just straight up did not have what I was looking for. So what I did was I listened to my own dang ad. I turned to rockauto.com and I got the parts I needed. It was windshield wipers shipped right to my door. Easy as that. Saved some money and could have saved myself time if I wasn't such a dummy. So why don't you follow my advice, maybe not my actions, and go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. And while you're there, make sure you write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box. That way they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. Still a pass for his point guard. Still Mike Richmond. You are still listening to Locked On Blazers. We're going to do something fun that we've never done before, but many of you out there have mashed this button, so now you're going to get to see me mash this button. The Blazers potentially, depending on what happens with their Pelicans game on, we'll call it the Clippers game, with the Clippers game on Friday, the Blazers have a chance to have 2 lottery picks, but certainly they're going to have 1. They're going to end up with their own lottery pick that could, as we sit here, it could be the number 1 overall pick. It's right now where they stand. They have a 9% chance to get the number 1 overall pick and a 37.2% chance of getting a top 4 pick. The Blazers right now where they stand have a 49, let me do the math a little bit more. Let's call it 50.4% chance, basically better than half, that they will pick 7 or 8 in the draft, but a 9% chance of getting the number 1 overall pick, 9.2 of landing 3, 9.4 of getting that 3rd pick, and 9.6% chance of getting 4th. They cannot pick 5th, and they cannot pick lower than 10th, and they only have a 0.1% chance of picking 10th. So really, they're going to pick 9 or higher and not 5th, somewhere in that range. Not 1 through 9, but not 5. So and I'm getting all of these odds from the good folks at Tankathon.com. It's a website that does pick odds for, all the major sports, and then you can simulate the lottery. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do a straight up mock draft on live right here. If you're watching on YouTube, this isn't live. I'm streaming it for you as I record it, but you are going to see the results live. If you're watching here with me on YouTube, you've seen me pull up the Tankathon website. We're going to sim the lottery. We're going to do this. We're going to do 3 spins. And we're going to talk about what we see. So shall we do it? Let's do it. All right. In our first spin, the Blazers fall down to 8th. The Pacers jump up to 1st. The Rockets get 2nd. The Hawks, jumped up 10 spots to get the 3rd pick in the draft. Pelicans 4th, courtesy of that Lakers pick. Magic 5, Pistons 6, OKC 7, and the Portland Trail Blazers 8. In this simulation, the Blazers are selecting Benedict Mathurin. That's Ben Mathurin, Pac-12 Player of the Year out of Arizona. He listed at 6'7", when I had my friend Mark Schindler on the pod a couple weeks ago. He says that Ben Mathurin is probably more like 6'5". He's a 2. He's not my choice. On the board when the Blazers pick at 8 is Tari Eason of LSU. I'm just jumping for Tari Eason over Ben Mathurin. If I'm the Blazers, no one else directly behind them in the lottery, I would say you have to go get. But for me, what I would change here is I'd say the Blazers at 8th overall take Tari Eason. In this simulation, the Blazers also got the Pelicans pick, and they took Jeremy Sohan, Baylor power forward, and Baylor forward at 12. Eason and Sohan would be a great haul because they're both fit the needs, right? Like Eason is potentially the best defender in his draft class, a 6'8" power forward out of LSU who came off the bench for the Tigers despite being their most productive player, their leading scorer, and by some advanced metrics, they're just straight up their most productive player. He can hoop. Tari Eason could really play. Tari Eason's one of my favorite players in the draft, and so on. He has some ball handling skills, has some shooting skills, has some fluidity at his size at 6'9", and is it has a bit of a motor. You get 2 6'9" forwards on this roster. It's exactly what they need. That's a pretty good spin. Shall we do it again, y'all? Yeah, let's do it one more time. Our second spin on the lottery. Let's do it. And in our second spin, the Blazers land 8th again, and that pick from the Pelicans, well, guess what? They hopped up to 4th, and the Blazers do not get the Pelicans pick in this simulation. The pick that New Orleans would give to the Blazers in the situation where they miss the playoffs, let's go positivity, when the Clippers lose, or when the Clippers win. I screwed up my own positivity. When the Clippers win on Friday night, when they win that home game, 4-point favorites according to BetOnline, when they win that home game, the Pels miss the playoffs, but if their pick lands in the top 4, they would keep it. And in our simulation here, they've landed in the top 4. They picked Jaden Ivey. Again, the Blazers, this is just kind of how the Tankathon is set up, as the Blazers are 8th. It would be Ben Mathurin. Again, I'm taking Tari Eason here. Let's go one more spin and see where it lands. 3 spins on the Tankathon. I got no luck today. The Blazers finished 7th in this one. The big jumpers here were the Spurs jumped up from 9 to the 3rd overall pick. Pistons, OKC, San Antonio, Orlando, Houston, the Indiana Pacers, and the Blazers go 7th. This is an interesting spot. I think, would I still be consider Tari Eason at 7? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, I would. But this would leave Shaedon Sharpe on the board. He's a guy who's a 5-star recruit, supposed to be just a phenomenal athlete, but did not play. Sat out his freshman year at Kentucky to have this exact situation happen, to protect his status as a lottery pick. 6'6" with super long arms. From what I've read about him, I've watched I've watched 12 minutes of YouTube videos on him. But real pull-up skills, really good athlete, might be a really good defender at his size, could potentially be a smaller 3 because of his length and athleticism, but probably early on his career is a 1-2 type with maybe some potential to play, all 3 of those spots if he fills out a little bit at 6'6" with some long arms. I don't love Shaedon Sharpe because I don't think the Blazers need more guards, but I think he's intriguing enough that you would consider it. And in this same simulation, the Pelicans pick landed at 11th, and the Blazers get Jalen Duren, the center from Memphis, or big man from Memphis. I think he's a center. I've seen some people calling him power forward. He's a center the way the NBA works now. Jalen Duren is right up there for me. I think the Blazers desperately need some front line depth. I think for young guys, Duren is still 18 years old as of now. I believe will be 19 by the time the NBA season starts, but will be under 19 at the night of the draft. That's like on draft night, he'll still be an 18-year-old. Guys that young just aren't that productive. So like having him be a backup his first year in the league is fine. Jalen Duren out of Memphis would be high on my list. If the Blazers end up in that sort of 9, 10, 11 range, I would strongly consider it. I would certainly take him over Johnny Davis of Wisconsin and probably Ben Mathurin of Arizona. Those are your 3 spins. We did it. We're going to do this a bunch. Like I'm not going to make this an every pod thing, but we'll do this a bunch throughout the year. And the actual draft lottery is until May 17th. So once we get the actual draft lottery, we will just straight up move into mock drafts because we'll know where the Blazers are going to pick, right? But for now, over the next month, this is April 15th show, and over the next month we will spin the Tankathon wheel a bunch and kind of figure out where the Blazers go, and maybe I'll get lucky enough to finally get in the top 4. Didn't get lucky. 8, and 7 are my best spins, and one spin where I didn't even get the Pelicans pick. Hopefully the Blazers have better luck. Here's my advice to y'all. If you have one of those half red, half blue Clipper Dale suits, go ahead and put that on. If you got a Michael Olowokandi jersey, go ahead and put that on. If you got an Eric Piatkowski t-shirt, go ahead and put that on. You got to root for the Clippers. Huge basketball game Friday night. I talked, if you were listening to today's show and you're like, why didn't you talk Clippers Pelicans? Yesterday's show, waiting in your feed right before this one. If you're on YouTube, the video that I posted right before this one, all about Clippers Pelicans, about 22.5 minutes on that matchup and how important it is. The biggest game of the Blazers season. Go Clips. Just come on. You got to root for Paul George. Playoff P. Paul George has been pretty successful in the postseason. Don't get it twisted. And he's been really successful when he hasn't had to play against Damian Lillard. You know who isn't on the other team is no Damian Lillard. Unfortunately, CJ McCollum and Larry Nance Jr. to give a little Blazers juju, but a whole bunch of Blazers on that Clippers roster as well. Shout out to Rodney Hood. Huge basketball game. Celebrate it if they win. It'll be a big moment for the Blazers, and then come back next week, because we got 5 more episodes of Locked On Blazers. It's what we do. So come join us. I would truly, truly appreciate it. If you're looking for us wherever you get podcasts. Also, check out Locked On Pelicans. Check out Locked On Clippers. If you're trying to get prepped for the game, my good friends who host those shows, Jake Madison and Charles Mockler, who host those 2 shows, do just a really good job. You will get hyped up and you will get sort of the view from both sides. So go check out those shows. Come back next week. Look for us wherever you get podcasts. Just search Locked On Blazers and you'll find us right there. Appreciate you listening, and I'll talk to you soon.